how, like, I mean, you even talk about that one week where you had so many doctor's appointments in one week and you're keeping up with all these schedules. So like, I know we really want to talk about, self-care during tragedy because you're kind of in this survival mode of like taking care of everyone around you and doing things for everyone. And even talking with you today, you seem very like everything's like under control. Like, I mean, you say all the support you have. So I just wonder like how have you taken care of yourself during all this, and how have you, allowed yourself those moments of, weakness, or those moments of, sadness, and like kind of allow each different emotions in each kind of
Stage
segment,
or
I
phase.
guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Self-care, as most moms know, is hard enough when life is normal and honky-dory, right? Like it's
Mhm.
hard enough to just say, okay, I'm important. I need this time too. Because a lot of times we are full of service from sun up to sundown. It's just serving others and making sure everyone else is taken care of. And, at some point it's essential. Like it really is essential for, and I know people have heard, like, put your mask on before you help others, like your oxygen mask,
Mhm.
like that scenario, or you can't pour from an empty cup, like all of those things. It's so true. Like if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't help others. Like you can, but eventually it's just you're gonna fizz out.
Mhm.
There was a point in time that there was absolutely no time for self-care, like for me personally. And this, everybody handles it differently, but there was a time that literally I had no time or no mental capacity to even think about myself, if that makes sense. So
Mhm.
in those times, I felt like it was super important for me to acknowledge, one, I know that I'm not getting the care that I need. And then two,
Mhm.
accepting that, like, okay, as long as I'm acknowledging and accepting of that, like I'm not in denial, or I'm not saying, oh, that's not important. It's important to acknowledge that, okay, self-care is important. I wasn't able to do it then. That doesn't mean I won't be able to get back on track, if that makes sense. So
Mhm.
I'm slowly getting back online. I feel like there have been so many opportunities and so many people willing to just take my kids or make me a meal, allowing me time to focus on myself. And I feel like that is such a blessing. And I've been able to, like I said, get back online a little bit. I remember the first time I made a meal after the accident was about 4 months. Okay. Like 4 months after I didn't have to cook for 4 months. That's, everyone's like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, no, it's not. Like for my brain, it wasn't. Like it's important to me. And we cook most of our meals at home, and I've taught my kids how to cook. Like that's one of I love doing that. And so I remember I cooked my first meal, and I remember my son, Cade, he's 10. He's like, Mom, you did awesome. And I was like, oh, I loved him for that. He was like, you did great. This is so good. And like,
Oh.
he was just so sweet about it. And it's just like the little things. Like I felt like for some reason, or that's not what I'm trying to say. At one point, I remember thinking, my kids are going to just remember this as a horrible time. Like this is going to be really rough on them. Like I didn't want them to think back and like have really, really bad feelings or bad like memories of this time here that we're here in Vegas. And no, my kids have over and over again just shocked me. And they're like, this is great. Like they'll tell me about an experience. This was my best day this year. And it was like in February, when in the thick of everything. And it was like, okay. So I have learned kids are resilient. They love you no matter what, and they will show up. They're just going to show up. Even if you don't give them all of the reasons to succeed, they're going to show up and they're going to just live life. And so I know, watching my kids, they will always choose self-care. So they're a great example to me of like, okay, make things fun when you have time, like
Mhm.
whether it's making a game of doing the dishes, like as silly as that sounds, like that's what my kids are teaching me. Like, Mom, if this is all you got time for, make it fun. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's, anyways, that's where I don't know. I know self-care is important. Do I have room for improvement? Yes, most moms do though. So, and that's
Yeah.
okay. I guess just give yourself some grace and just acknowledge and accept where you're at, right where you're at.
Yeah. And I think too, like you acknowledging, just being aware of those moments where you're like, okay, I don't have time right now, but I will.
Yeah.
It's something that you're then more aware of, to be in this mode right now where I gotta, help everyone. I think that's really important.